Welcome to nutrition, the bit that everyone hates. The bit that everyone hates. We spend 23 hours a day outside of the gym, outside of that hour, and this is where it can go a little bit Pete-tong, a little bit over the wall, a little bit all over the gaff. What I'm going to run through today is basically where I've messed it with nutrition in the past, what I've done to sort of mitigate that, and what I'm doing over this next 6-week period moving forward to make it as simple as possible. How IBS affects me and affects my training, and I've got to be really careful with what I'm eating as I sit here with a nice, all over the gaff, with a plate of eggs. How that sort of affects me, how I sort of mitigate that, and how that can have quite a big effect on me and my old mental health. I'm not a fan of it, obviously. Sort of nutrition suggestions for busy people. We're going to go through that to make these things as simple as possible. And so if I was in your situation, not that I'm busy, but if I were like an office worker, you work on site, anything like that, what we can do to sort of plan around that, what a day looks like for nutrition for me, and finally, the calorie and macro targets that I'm aiming for, that I'm going to be hitting over the next 6 weeks. I'm going to eat my eggs, and then we'll get straight into it. The biggest mistake that lads make with the nutrition when it comes to hybrid training is so simple. Like, it's the absolute difference between staying exactly where you are, staying out of shape, feeling rough, feeling like you need to sort your head out, and actually making meaningful progress to balance running and lifting and doing both at the same time. And it's the all or nothing mentality. And I was an absolute 100% proprietor of the all or nothing mentality. In the past, and it's something that I still struggle with now, is feeling like I had to be 100% perfect all the time, to strive for absolute 100% perfection without fail. And the reason for that, the reason why it's so bad, the reason why it has such a massive effect, is because it doesn't take into account the day-to-day life of being a human being. If, for example, like last night, my chicken didn't defrost. My chicken didn't defrost because I didn't take it out of the freezer like an idiot. Have a guess what's happened there. My protein intake is a lot lower for the day because I had nothing in, and I'm not walking to the shop to go and get it. So I thought, right, it is what it is. In the past, what I genuinely would have done, I know exactly what I would have done. I'd have looked back at it and gone, do you know what? Let's go and get something to eat. That meal's ruined because I've not got enough protein. Let's go to the shop. I'd have gone and got whatever I wanted. I'd have gone and got something that was completely out of the plan, out of what I told myself that I was going to be having. And through that all or nothing mentality, I'd have wrote the entire day off. It sounds so unbelievably stupid saying it out loud, saying it to a camera. When you actually speak it out loud and speak it into existence, you realize some of the things that you do subconsciously, like how weird and how not it's not real behavior. It's very much like the button in the back of your head where you go, fuck it, I'll just go and do that. I'll just go and do this instead, because when you've got no one that's holding you accountable, or you're not saying these things out loud, you're not writing down, okay, what happened in the run up to when I binged, what happened in the run up when I decided just to fuck everything off. When you think about emotionally whereabouts you are, what happened in the lead up to that, I think you get a better understanding of yourself. You get a better understanding of your nutritional habits. And when you understand that a lot more, when you understand deep down, right, okay, why am I like this? Why am I in this situation where I'm in now? And when you start to understand that, that's when you can game plan around it. When you can game plan around it, you can come up with really key, simple things that you need to follow. Is it hitting a certain amount of protein across the day? Giving yourself a target for that, an upper limit and a lower limit, which eliminates that need to get it right by the gram. Is it a case of, right, okay, I want a nutritional structure that I can stick to that's relatively loose. I want to make sure that 2 meals are pretty set in stone, that are pretty non-negotiable, that stay just for ease of planning. And my evening meal with my missus, that's a little bit more flexible. My evening, and that's, to be fair, that's pretty much what I follow. And it sort of taps into the thing that I really struggled with, which was not quite knowing what I was training for. I think that the thing that I've always found the hardest is when I said to myself, I need to lose body fat. I need to get shredded to go on holiday. I need to get abs. I need to get tight. I need to get as small as possible. That goal never really meant anything to me. It was just something that I thought I really had to do because that's what you're supposed to do when you stop playing football. You get into bodybuilding. Shit, I've stopped playing footy. I'm not training for performance. I'm not training for sport. I'm training purely based on the way that I look, which is completely different to playing sport. completely different. So that goal switched, and it never really meant anything to me. So is it any wonder that I was like, I'm not that arsed really about it? And then that leads to, if I'm not really that arsed about it, I don't really understand the goal. The goal doesn't mean anything to me. If it doesn't mean anything to you, at the first sign of something going a bit wrong, at the first sign of a little bit of resistance, is it any, like, I just revert back to type and I go, right, okay, I'm going binging. Let's go to Morrison's and see what I need to nail. That's sort of like where I've gone wrong with nutrition in the past. Sort of moving forward over this next 6 weeks, in order to mitigate that, I'm very much adopting briefly what I mentioned before. I've got a limit on my the calories that I'm consuming across this next 6 weeks. It's going to be somewhere around about that 2,300. That can go up and down depending on the day, but I will average around about 2,300. If I'm going for a meal out, maybe Saturday or Sunday, if I'm out with Megan, if I know that we're, say for example, going for a meal out on a Saturday, and that involves maybe going to a bakery, having a bit of a walk, I know that my protein intake is going to be a bit lower for that day. All I'm going to do, maybe the day before, maybe the day after, just increase my protein intake a little bit. That's, again, like, it sounds really simple when you say it out loud, but having this someone to say to you, okay, this is what we should do this week. What have we got coming up? Have we got a meal out coming up? All right, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, let's do X, Y, and Z. Let's reduce that. Let's increase that. That helps massively. Another thing I'm doing is going to be sticking to the 2+1 approach. So my first meal is always going to be structured, set in stone. Had it before, 4 eggs, easy. That's always going to be meal number 1. Meal number 2 is going to be my meal prepped meal, which I make on a Sunday. Even though I work at home, even though I am very much based in here, I like to have things just ready for me, so I can literally walk over to there, grab it out there, bang it straight into the microwave, and then I'm home and free. I don't have to think about it. It removes that decision fatigue of, okay, what should I have to eat now? All of it takes literally 2 minutes to put it in the microwave, which makes things a lot easier. And the sort of like third and final, I guess thing that I'm doing to mitigate that all or nothing mentality is just remove that level of pressure off myself. I'm not stepping on the scale for the next 6 weeks because I can get quite into that, like, really hyper focused, really hyper fixated headspace where I need to know every single little bit of data. I can overanalyze, I can overthink. Okay, is this not working? I know that if I am ticking the boxes from a training perspective, from a lifestyle perspective, and from a nutrition perspective, my body weight is going to come down because ultimately I want to reduce my levels of body fat for running purposes. I can do that on autopilot because it isn't the focus. I'm focusing purely on performance. And when you do that, and when you start to change from, okay, I don't really like bodybuilding. Let me paint you a picture. Let me paint you a perfect picture. You are a 26-year-old lad. You played football from the age of 8 all the way up to 20. You stopped. You stopped when you was 20 and you thought, right, okay, I'm going to get in the gym. I'm going to get myself massive. That's what my mates are doing. I'm going to do that. From 20 to 22, you trained relatively consistently, but that level of consistency was inconsistent. Like, you do it in sort of like periods. Maybe it was 3 months at a time for an holiday when you go into a beaver. Maybe in winter, you was like, right, okay, let's bulk. Let's get massive. Let's get as big as possible. Then I'll do a summer cut. And then that training intensity, it starts off with a new training block, really, really hard. The intensity is there. Every session gets nailed. But there's something in the back of your mind going, I'm not really bothered about this. There's nothing that's keeping me consistent. There's nothing that's actually keeping me here. That level of intensity, that level of consistency starts to drop off towards the end of the training block. Then it's maybe 3 weeks off. Maybe something came up. Maybe you've picked up a little bit of an injury and you thought, do you know what? I'm not really that bothered about it. You go round and round in this circle, round and round in that constant cycle of big goals at the start, lots of lots of pressure, massive promises to yourself that I'm going to do this, I'm going to change, I'm going to be the best version of myself, I'm going to be shredded, I'm going to be massive. And then that level of consistency, that level of intensity, imagine it, we're at the start and it just drops straight back down. And I am going to argue that the reason for that is that you're doing the wrong training type. There's no conditioning, there's no level of being fitter. And ultimately, if you play football when you was younger, if you play sport when you was younger, that level of conditioning, that level of endurance was something that was very, very important. You were training for performance without you realising it. Yeah, you might not have been doing gym work, but ultimately training to get better at the sport of which you was doing is what you was doing. So that was why you were consistent, because it was something that you were bought into. When you bought into the training style of what you want to do, when you really, it feels like it's a part of you, it feels like you're motivated to do it, that's when you start to see progress, because you're doing it consistently for a long period of time. All that training is, all that this is, yeah, is how long can you spend doing the boring things week on week and chipping away at it. That's why hybrid training is so enjoyable. That's why it is I will shout about this until the cows come home from the rooftops, whatever metaphor that I can think of, because you can do different things. You can focus on running for a specific block. Okay, do we want to train for a 10K? Do we want to bring that 5K PB down? Okay, it's winter. Actually, I want to focus on strength a little bit more. And when we do that, and we've got a through line to our training, like for me personally, I can point 12 months into the future and go, this is what I'm doing in July. And then I've worked backwards from there. So I've got my ultra marathon in July. I can work backwards from there. What is that block building towards? Okay, let's build towards running a half marathon in 1:45. Okay, let's move backwards from that. Let's build to running a sub 50 10K. When we build ourselves back from that, whilst also prioritizing the strength work, can we get stronger over the X period of time? Are our metrics moving in the right way? Are they moving forwards? And when we do this, it becomes so much more enjoyable, because it's not bodybuilding. It's not the same push-pull leg split. It's not the same bicep curls on a fucking Tuesday night sat in a pure gym while it's absolutely hammered. Like, we're doing this for ourselves, to be better, to be stronger, to be fitter, and ultimately to feel better about yourself, to be happier, to be stronger. And not a lot of people talk about it, but the relationship that you probably got with training now could have been ruined by bodybuilding. It could have been ruined by this idea that you've got to be as big as possible. Because I get slagged off for it. I get slagged off for saying like, oh, I don't really want to be a bodybuilder. I don't want to be the biggest person in the room. And that's not to demonize the people that do. Fine. You crack on. I've got absolutely no qualms with someone saying, I want to be the biggest person. I want my muscles to be as huge as possible. But ultimately, I put a lot of emphasis on being fitter, on being faster, on being stronger, and being like athletic, and tapping back into that level of competitiveness that I had when I was younger, when I played football, when I truly enjoyed training. And I fucking love training now, because I'm bought in and I understand what I'm training for. And I think that when we do a bit of work on ourselves, when we do a bit of work on the mindset sort of side of things, to say, right, okay, and ask ourselves the question, what is it that we want? When we do that, have a guess what happens. Go on, have a guess. You get bought in, you enjoy it, you do it more often, you do it more consistently over a longer period of time, because the goal can shift depending on what it is that you want to do. As long as there's that through line that we're shooting for, we get better, we feel happier. Because that's the only thing I will ever say about any of my clients, that I want you to be happy. I want you to just feel good about yourself. Because when you feel good about yourself, you feel good mentally. Everything's good. Everything's good. Question 1 answered. So the next question is, how do I deal with IBS? How do I deal with IBS, bloating, and how that affects my conditioning? So when I tend to have a flare up, it involves a lot of like massive bloating in my stomach. Obviously, difficulty on the toilet. Don't need to go into that too much, but really struggle with the feeling of like not being empty is the best way that I can describe it. So when you're running, when you're doing conditioning work where that heart rate is pushed up, I've always really struggled with sort of mitigating that when I'm having a flare up. So say for example, if I had an interval run planned in. I've got an interval run planned in. The day before, I've eaten something that maybe in a meal out, I've eaten something that's got something in that I've not really noticed, that I've not really thought about, or I've had a moment where I've just gone, do you know what, it'll be fine, I'll just deal with it. If I had an interval run planned, all I would do would be switch that for some easier conditioning. I feel like waiting until these acute symptoms have dropped down a little bit to replace it with some easier conditioning work is the best thing that I can do, because ultimately I'd rather wait a little bit and have that quality work, so those higher intensity running sessions, those higher intensity maybe bike sessions, waiting until those acute symptoms have dropped down and it feels much more manageable. I'd rather keep those quality sessions quality and keep my easy days as easy as possible, especially if you're doubling up, which I'm not doing over these 6 weeks anyway. If you were, say, for example, training in the morning and maybe running in the afternoon or something, I think that keeping your easy days as easy as possible and your hard days as hard as you want them to be is the best way that we can sort of manage that. In terms of like the things that I sort of tend to avoid, I try to avoid a lot of dairy. Skyr tends to be okay, which is manageable, which is good because I eat pretty much a pot of it every day. That's really, I just try and avoid a lot of dairy. I use a lot of oat milk. I use lactose-free milk as well. I think that is a massive part of it. But there's certain things like garlic and onions which tend to have like a massive effect on, especially like bloatedness in the stomach. But the time when I see the biggest impact is when I go through cycles of binging. Go through cycles where my calorie intake is almost like, it's like binge drinking, but binge eating, obviously. I don't know why I said that like it was some unbelievable discovery for me. But when it's just almost like my body gets used to eating a certain amount of food, if that bumps up massively, it feels like my body goes into overdrive where it just goes, just basically, I'm just peppered. That's the best way I can describe it. So making sure that the plan can change and the plan can adapt based on digestion levels. I found that eating like a low FODMAPs diet has really, really helped me with bringing those acute symptoms down. Like, so I've had a bit of a tiny bit of a flare up today. So the only thing that's going to change for me in here is that I am going to eat really, really simple foods today. Eating potatoes, eating carrots, eating like chicken without like a massive like sauce on it, without like a spicy sauce on it. Anything like that. Like, it's very much a trial and error sort of thing. Seeing what works for me, seeing what doesn't work for me, and sort of adapting that based on how that sort of goes. But the biggest thing I can say is when you're having that acute flare up, if it's something that you do suffer with, then don't be afraid to bring that intensity down. Like I said, I mentioned thousands of times, long-term adherence is the thing that matters most, not can we kill ourselves in for one session? Can we absolutely redline it for one session and not be able to recover from it, prolong that level of poor digestion, which is then going to lead to blah, 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 blah. I always find that they say that the gut is the second brain. I find that when I'm having like a pretty bad flare up, it really corresponds with stress. It really corresponds with increased levels of stress. It corresponds with genuinely like low mood, feeling quite depressed. I find that the two are often quite linked with me. I often start to feel low and then my stomach starts to go. Again, that could be very much a placebo effect sort of thing. But yeah, the relationship between the two of them can be a little bit funny. The next part I'm going to touch on is nutrition suggestions for people that are busy, for busy people. And I'm always wary about talking about this because everyone's busy. If you're working full time, you've got a family, you've got a missus, you've got a dog, whatever, your time is limited. So what can we do to make this as simple as possible? And the answer to that is prep your food. It really, really is. It takes you 30 minutes, 40 minutes on a Sunday, as long as you've got that plan ahead in place, which is something that I'm doing over this next 6 weeks. And one of the videos I'm going to do is going to be how me and Megan plan our food for the week, how it keeps our costs for the food shop down, because it's expensive being alive in the UK at the minute. How can we mitigate the rising cost in things? Can we prep things in advance? And doing that is going to 100% improve your consistency. It's going to save you a bit of money as well, rather than buying a meal deal every day. And ultimately, it's going to teach you how to cook. It's going to teach you how to make your food more palatable. It's going to teach you to ultimately develop the skill of cooking, develop the skill of being able to provide your own nutrition without having to go for expensive meal prepping services, without having to go for, like I say, reaching for the meal deals, reaching for Greg's, driving past Mackey's first thing in the morning and nailing a triple sausage and egg and thinking, why the fuck have I done that? I've got my dinner in the van. Yeah, that's the biggest advice that I can give there is just prep your food in advance. Even if you're not actually physically making the food, like, have everything pre-planned or pre-entered into your tracking app of choice if you use MyFitnessPal or whatever. As long as that your next day is planned, that decision that you've got to make is completely removed from it, because all we have to do is follow it. It's the single best thing you can do. Like, the way that I would do it if I was you, if I was Saturday, I was working in an office or I was working on site and I know tomorrow, what am I going to do? I would try and get my protein boxed as soon as possible. So the way that I do it if I was on MyFitnessPal, I would enter the sort of the meat that I was looking to, the things that are highest in protein. That could be skyr, it could be eggs first thing in the morning, it could be some form of lean meat, it could be cheese, whatever that is. Get that pre-entered. Then we can look back, okay, for my meals that I'm eating across the day, what does that roughly look at from a protein point of view? Is it purely protein? Then we look to build out our meals. What carb sources are we eating? What digests well with us? What's going to give us the most amount of energy? How can we make sure that we're not over restricting? How can we make sure that our training sessions are fueled properly? Ultimately, again, comes down to trial and error. What does our training sessions feel like on X amount of calories? If we want to know the answer to that, when we know the answer to that, that means that we can either go up or we can go down. What do we want to do with our body weight? Does our body weight want to come down? Is that a big goal for us at the minute over a training block? What do we want to work towards from is it a calorie deficit? Are we looking to roughly sit at maintenance and then let that activity that we're doing from the endurance training, are we looking to use that as the deficit? These are all different things that we can think about. And without me knowing ultimately what your specific situation is, I can't give you much advice on that. But that's how, from when a client comes to me, that's the first thing we look at from sort of like that point of view. So just make sure that at first, as long as you're hitting your protein goal and your calories are whatever you want them to be, whether that be gaining weight, maintaining or losing, you're fine. I think they're getting bogged down in the how many grams of fat, how many grams of carbs. I feel like a lot of the time you can be fighting a losing battle when you start to really, really hyper focus on, I need an extra 5 grams of fat, or my carbs are a bit low. What do? Yeah, it matters, but making things as simple as possible for long-term adherence and long-term consistency is the best thing that we can do in this situation. The final question. Do you know what? I'm going to move somewhere else. This is what I'm eating today. I've got 4 eggs. For my second meal, it's going to be some oats, some skim milk, and some honey. A meal prep meal is going to be my dinner for today, or lunch if you're from anywhere else in the world. Pork mince, some pasta, some red peppers, some broccoli, and some full fat soft cheese. Again, for digestion wise, it's absolutely fine. There's only certain things that I tend to have, which are garlic and onions, which tend to have that little have that impact on my gut. My third and final meal of the day is going to be 150 grams of chicken thigh, some potatoes, some carrots, and some courgettes. That's simple stuff in it. It's really, really simple stuff. There's nothing complicated about that. I do it because it's easy, and I think I probably enjoy convenience over anything else. That sits me around about 2,000 calories a day, leaving that 3,000 calories that I spoke about, with that target being around about 2,300. I think I'm going out for food on Friday evening. So all I'm going to do across this week is probably bring those down a little bit and stick around about that 2,000. Because if I do that, I eat roughly 2,000 calories every single day across the week. That gives me what? 300, 600, 900, 1,200, give or take. Again, that's very, very rough estimate, that I would be under what I sort of planned. So that means on Friday, I don't have to think too much around what I'm getting worried about what I'm eating, worried about is my fat loss going to stall, because it's so easy to get hyperfixated on it. It's so easy to get hyperfixated on the minute little details of your diet, but all you're doing there is just dopamine seeking. You're seeking the thing, you're tweaking your food rather than just doing the thing, rather than just eating what you've got planned anyway. When you get so hyperfixated, and I'm bad for this, when we get like hyperfixated on, right, okay, what's the perfect split? What's the perfect nutrition plan? What's the perfect amount of calories that I can eat? You start to tweak things, then you feel like you've done something. Because, oh, okay, that's the perfect plan. And now that I've got the perfect plan, I don't really need to do it, because you've got that little thing in the back of your head that's gone, well done. You've done well there, because you've gained you understand the information. But more information is never like having understanding nutrition is not your issue. It never has been. You know what you should be eating more of. You know what you should be eating less of. But it's the actual application of that's the main issue for everyone. It's the main issue for the lads that I work with. If I said to them, do you know what you should eat? Yeah. Do you know what you should eat less of? Yeah. Why are you not doing it then? And that's when we look into habits, when we look into sort of what's your like actual feelings around food. Ultimately, you bought into what it is that you actually want to achieve. If the answer is no to that, then you know there's work to do to understand what it is. And I know that hybrid training is the answer to that. So yeah, I'll see you for tomorrow's video. Ta-ra.